So there are some things that I think, Andy, about you that are somewhat relatable to other people, and some things about you that I think are quite rare. The first thing is that I do think you have a sense of internal confidence that doesn't necessarily come from success, because I don't think it's success, because a lot of people become successful and then they need more and more success. And it's kind of like, no money is ever enough. Like, you want to be higher and higher on the totem pole. Like, the desire to be higher on the totem pole never goes away. So even if you move up on the totem pole, you want to be even higher, and then you want to be even higher, and then you want to be even higher. It's like a beast that, like, the more you feed it, the more it grows, and the hungrier it gets, and the more you have to feed it. It's
Is
kind of
that like the hedonic treadmill?
I don't know what that is, but certainly
It's
sounds like
like
it.
it's like the thirst for hedonism. Just like I need more of what's
Yeah.
making me happy.
So I'd say that, for example, like, ego is a good example of the more that you feed ego, the bigger it grows and the more it needs to sustain itself. And
Yeah.
so over time, ego can become like really narcissism. I think you are either lucky or should give yourself a pat on the back. And I think that comes from this sense of snapping out of autopilot into awareness.
Mm-hmm.
So I think you really are somewhat different in that you have that capacity to recognize that you could be working at Popeyes for the rest of your life and kind of be happy with that.
Yeah, I did. I've had many minimum wage jobs, and when I look back at them, I loved them all of them were cool, and I feel like character building. And I think people who get success in Hollywood way early, you see there's just like an onslaught of people that just turn to be fucked up, and
Yep,
it's like drugs and mentally fucked. Like,
sure. I mean, I've worked with some people in Hollywood, and so I'm with you 100%. So I think that this is interesting because I don't think that that sort of happened to you. The real question. So that's one thing. The second thing is, we could talk a little bit about like motivation and habit and behavior and what
mm-hmm.
dictates behavior. That feels kind of dry to me. I don't think it's like really. I mean, we can talk about it. It's going to be a little bit more lecturing or walking you to something.
Yeah, yeah,
The third thing, though, I think comes back to this like central idea of why do you need to be in these rooms with these people in the first place,
mm-hmm.
and what are the things that keep you from. So we could say, like, why do you need to be in a room with Netflix execs? Why do you need to put together a treatment? Because you're making a. And I think I'm understanding that a little bit. You're kind of making an argument that in order to creatively express yourself the way that you need to, and I'm kind of trying to summarize here, you actually do need an organization or production value behind it. That
For some
for
things,
some things, right?
I think also that's also a crutch for people too, is saying like you need a production, you need this. I
Yep.
don't. I mean, the thing that got me a TV show was making homemade videos with a webcam like 20 years ago. If that doesn't give me proof that I don't fucking need anybody, then I don't know what does. So I could still make cool shit on my own, but also I have a thirst to make something bigger with a production, and that's where I feel like it's
Yeah.
just like, you
So
know.
so that's, I think, the key thing there, right? So the question is, what is that thirst? So is it truly an artistic thirst, or is it an ego thirst? And my sense is that it's more of an artistic thirst than an ego thirst.
Yeah, I think so.
So if that's the
Um
case, then you do need to be in the room with those people,
yeah,
right?
uh not 100%. I think like there are also people on YouTube who create a bunch of stuff, it gets big, and then they become those people in the room for themselves, and they start hiring people, and they have a production budget, uh, and they climb that mountain. And that's definitely a possibility too. Like if I stopped doing Twitch, which would be big, and I made videos every day, I could potentially get to that point where I could have a whole staff and hire a whole staff with the YouTube budget. It's a crazy rare uphill battle that I don't know.
When you say I don't know, what does that mean?
I mean, like for me to just stop doing Twitch, like I attempted YouTube around the time when like vlogging was real big and like the Logan Pauls and Jake Pauls and just very like pandery stuff was like really big. And my YouTube channel wasn't popping at all. And then I kind of found Twitch. And when the IRL section came out, I started, doing pretty decent on Twitch. Um, so to kind of pull the plug on Twitch, I'd have to like, I might be able to do
How are
Twitch a
we
little more.
getting to pulling the plug on Twitch?
I'm saying like my alternative to sitting in the room with someone like Netflix would be to
Yeah,
pull the
but
plug on Twitch and to create this big YouTube series that could eventually fund me getting a
yes.
staff and a production,
So let me take a step back again. I'm going to give you a couple of options, okay?
Okay.
One is that we can talk a little bit about like motivation and habit and how to sit your ass in front of a piece of paper and write something.
Mhm.
We can dig into a little bit more about what it means to create something substantive and what the recipe for that looks like. But the real question that I wonder, and I think this could be tricky for you, Andy, is because you're so confident, it's possible that you have some kind of negative emotion that's really holding you back. And your confidence is there, and so it makes it almost like cognitively dissonant for you to feel that kind of fear. You're happy
Mhm.
being at Popeyes, but here's kind of I made a couple of notes, and this is sort of like a hypothesis that I'd love to
Mhm.
put to you. And you kind of talk about potential, you talk about kind of giving up Twitch and sort of gunning for this YouTube thing. You talk about these execs where you're not able to motivate yourself. And when I think about why people can't motivate themselves, a lot of it is because they intrinsically are concerned or really don't believe that they're going to be successful.
Mhm.
And it's very, very subtle because I think you are confident, but I'm wondering if I'm hearing some subtle undertone of like your best days are behind you. That the highest you're ever going to go was that first thing that you did where you made it big and you wound up on Hollywood, and everything after that is like you're like a little bit of like Andy's a has been.
Mhm.
Do you feel that? Are you afraid of that?
I don't think so because I was about to move to New York to really I don't think there's like a lot of IRL streamers in New York, and I was like just about to be like, all right, well I could just run it. I could run the IRL scene in New York cuz not that many people are doing it. And then I acted in this independent film that maybe nobody will see, but it was so rewarding and it felt so good, and it it made me like, man, like it made me feel like, man, I need to do more acting. Like, what am I doing? There's something so awesome and creative about it. And the fact that it might not even see the big screen, like yeah, it would be nice if that was seen in 2000 screens, but it was still just as rewarding just actually doing it. So like, I don't know. I think like I don't think I really care.
Okay.
If
So
you told me I could say like, "Oh, I could snap my fingers and this is going to be in 200 screens and be super successful." Yeah, I'd be happy about that. But there's so much disappointment in Hollywood. I just expect it. And when something good happens, that's kind of like the icing on the cake. It's like, "Cool, that was really fun and awesome to do." But
so
also, "Oh, cool, it was successful too."
Andy, are you unhappy?
I don't think so. I really don't think so. I mean, I think everybody goes through unhappiness. Like nobody's 100% happy
Sure.
all the time. But I try to like kind of like
Do you think
analyze myself.
do you
And when
think
I wake up,
do you
sorry, go
think
ahead.
you should be different, or do you think your life should be different?
Um, I think, um, I think if I put in instead of like over the last 10 years, put in maybe 25% of the effort I put in 50%, my life probably would be different. And as much as like it sounds like that's I resent myself for it, and maybe I do a little bit. I
But
I mean,
so
this gives
Andy, that's true, but do you care?
I only care a little bit, and I don't want to get too weird on you, but since the way I view the universe and the way I view philosophy, how I feel like most everything means nothing. Like, every day you wake up, you smile, you feel good, that means something, right? But long term, I value very little. So like I'm kind of indifferent. I kind of think like,
Right.
man, if I put a little more effort in, like I would have been in a cooler, doper
Yeah. So
position, and
Andy,
I
this
wouldn't have
is.
to worry about it.
I
No,
apologize because I'm interrupting you a fair amount,
that's all right.
but if it gets annoying, please let me know. I can do less.
That's
But
okay.
I think at this point I'm getting a sense. So I think you're, and I mean this is definitely my fault. So I asked you, is there something that you want to change, and you said yes. But the more that we talk about it, I'm not really getting the sense that anything in your life needs to change.
Well, I disagree.
Why?
Because I wouldn't I wouldn't be thinking about it so much if I didn't care at all, right?
Yeah,
Like
but so then the question is, how much do you care? Because if you care, as you said, just a little bit, what? I mean, there are a lot of things that I care about just a little bit, but like, why the fuck even bother? Right? Like,
well, maybe a little bit is an understatement because
maybe it is.
if I think about it enough and it's something that fuels my mind and I'm like I have these like especially like late at night thoughts where I'm like what the fuck am I doing? Tomorrow I'm going to wake up and stream a game. It's so fucking pointless for me. I'm not good at games. It's just killing time. Uh so I just went online and I
So,
bought some really nice headphones and a microphone and I'm like fuck this, we're quarantined. I'll make a whole fucking album while we're here. Fuck Twitch for a minute, you know what I mean? Like that I could come back in a week. I could come back in 2 weeks. Like I have this tug of war in my mind where I'm just trying to pull myself away from the stuff that's not super creative and I'm trying to pull myself towards the creative side. And that struggle is something that I
but
feel on a regular basis.
what keeps you away from the creative?
I think what keeps me away from it is saying, fuck it.
What is
It's
that?
like I don't know, man. Maybe it's like, okay, think about this.
How did you
How
feel?
many
Go
how
ahead.
many I just want to says how many people talk to you and pitch a really big idea to you and they're like so excited about this idea they thought of. And how many people actually go ahead and do those ideas? Being a doer and not a sayer is the hardest thing in life.
Sure.
And I think that maybe be my struggle. And sometimes I say, you know what? I thought of this. I'm not going to be one of those people who just says I'm going to do something and I do it. And sometimes I become a doer and and it pays off because it feels good. But I need to try to win that tug of war more often and be more of a doer. And when I have a thought of creating something awesome, I need to like learn how to be stronger to win that tug of war with myself, I think.
Okay. So that I think I can help you with. And sorry
Okay.
for spending so long and kind of getting to this point because
No, I
so
feel like it's
far.
my fault for being confusing, maybe.
No. I think you've. I think it's just it's complicated, right? Because you're so
Uh-huh.
content, and yet we talk about things a little bit. Like you're like I have a little bit of regret, but
Yeah.
I'm getting the sense that there's a part of me that some of your language
Mm-hmm.
makes it sound like not a big deal. Like literally, you'll use phrases like it's a little bit, and like I'd be fine if I was like working at Popeyes for the rest of my life. I'd be fine if I was
Yeah.
doing this, and those seem like genuine statements to me. They don't seem like they're denial. They don't seem to me like their ego. That sounds like you're genuinely there. And
Yeah.
also, I get the sense from you that there is some work that is left undone. And I think that there is actually a part of you that's a little bit desperate, because I think until that work is done, until you actually create that thing, which is not the totem pole of success in Hollywood, but the totem pole of like your satisfaction with what you've created and put out into the world.
I agree with that, except I think it will never be complete because there are little bursts. It's like a roller coaster.
Yeah, so
Like
I think
I
I
had a
don't know
cooking show.
I don't agree with that. I think it can be complete. I think you can be content. And I think that
Well,
on your deathbed, as
mm-hmm,
death is imminent and looming before you,
mm-hmm.
that cookie's going to crumble one of two ways.
Yeah, but I already feel like if I died today, I've done so much, and I feel like I use this analogy already, but I feel like anything else is the icing on the cake. I went from being a high school dropout to having my own show to being in movies and coming and touring the world with doing
Yeah,
music.
but
Like to me that feels pretty dope, and if I die
yeah,
I'm like, cool.
so
I got to see a lot of
so
countries. I
Andy,
got to do a lot of stuff.
this is exactly what I'm noticing, right? So like when I any side of the argument that I take, you take the opposite side. So like if I say that you're discontent, you say I am
Mhm.
content, and if I say you are content, then you kind of say like maybe it's a little bit more than a little
Well,
bit.
but here's the thing. I totally agreed with whatever you had to say about getting to a place of being content. But the only argument I have is it feels like a roller coaster, right? Because like when I it's not like I haven't done bigger stuff in the recent years. When I do, like I did a cooking show for Vice, right? That was like cool and creative, and it was
Hmm.
my own idea, and that was like the top, and then you go down and then you plateau again, and then you feel that juice. You need that hit again to do something else. That's why
What is that hit? Is that an internal desire to create, or is it to have
yes.
something successful?
It's definitely to create. Having it be successful is nice, but it's that internal desire to create something original and put it out into the world.
Okay.
And yeah,
So
if nobody sees it, it might feel a little bit like bad, but
so let's talk about that. So oddly enough, I think what I'd like to talk to you about is spirituality.
okay.
Any do you have a particular inclination towards spirituality or religion?
Um, I think religion to me is just nothing to me. It's like
Sure.
I look at it as like naive. Like my my favorite here. I'll show you a little quote that I really like. Got tattooed on my arm. It's only the madman is absolutely sure. Uh, and it's kind of like the people in the world that are the madmen, that are the crazy people, are the people who are absolutely sure of something. And it's not just about anything. Like I'm absolutely sure I love the color green. It's more about bigger things, like about religion, about the universe. People that think they have the thing figured when it's just such a gamble and it's such a maybe. Those are the people that are a little bit cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs.
Sure.
So my thing is pretty much this guy Robert Anton Wilson is pretty dope. It's kind of like maybe to everything.
Sure. So I'd like to then maybe share with you a hypothesis that I'd
Okay.
love to get your thoughts on. And so let me, first of all, let's see if I understand where you are and where you'd like to go.
Mhm.
So it sounds like I said at the beginning, I think you are generally content and confident
Mhm.
in your capabilities, and that you sometimes have creative impulses, and that those creative impulses can be satisfying or unsatisfying, and
Mhm.
that sometimes the result of your creation is successful or unsuccessful, but that is an independent axis from satisfying or unsatisfying. That in and of
Mhm.
itself, I think, sets you in the 1%, because very few people, a lot of like the people on Twitch, for example, and I'm not trying to speak down of them. I'm just saying that we're taught by society that internal reward and success should be aligned. That internal rewarding and external success are like one and the same. right?
Yeah,
That's
but
why.
society is garbage, though. Anyway,
Sure,
so
absolutely. And I think that's why people are suffering, because society is garbage. Right? So
yeah.
it's like the promise of a boomer generation that if you work hard and you go to school and you get a good job as an engineer and you buy a house and you have 2 kids, that you will be
Mm-hmm.
happy in life. Right? It's this kind
Yeah.
of idea that internal success is a reflection of external success.
Yeah, because if you need validation from people that are probably garbage people, like what the fuck does that make you? You have to like learn to love yourself. And if you think you're a dope human and you're cool to people, then you should validate yourself. If you know what I mean? Like, why do I
Absolutely.
care what people I don't trust think about me? Why do I
So
care what people who are horrible to other people think about me? Those people don't matter. They're like in the fucking sewers.
so for people who are curious, this is the difference between ego and confidence. Right? So the egotistical person has a value that is determined by others, and the confident
Mhm.
person has a value that is determined by yourself. And I think
Mhm.
Andy is confident. So that
Thank you.
still remains. You still have your problem, which is that when after a certain amount of creative endeavor, you
Mhm.
wind up in kind of like this trough where you notice it sounds like you have opportunities to create and maybe get that production value behind you that gives you the
Mhm.
substance to truly create what you want to, but you're
Mhm.
not able to motivate yourself to be able to like capitalize on that opportunity and make a treatment for Netflix or whatever.
Yeah, and sometimes I think I like cook myself because of like logistics that I get overwhelmed with. Like I have a I didn't have enough space to create stuff, so I got a loft downtown with bigger space. Then I got a green screen. And like little logistics of like this is not working or I don't know how to like properly do this, and then like I needed some help, so I got TaskRabbit to fix this. Once I have everything aligned to where I could create something, I feel like that's when I really go for it. Like, and I see little successes here and there where I'm like, all right, well, I want to make a parody autotune song. I can't get autotune working, so then I just don't work on it for a week, and then I finally have someone help me or like get everything tuned to where I could just go. And once I have everything ready to go, that's when I could start creating stuff. And I feel like, all right, sometimes I have these little mental blocks where I feel like I know there's a hurdle in the way of me creating something, and that kind of gets discouraging, you know.
What's the hurdle?
The hurdle could be technical stuff. It could be finding people to be in certain like sketches. It could be
Okay.
money
So
for production.
yeah, I mean, it sounds like you do your best work, and I mean, now I see the value of production because it sounds like the stuff that prevents you from creating is the same stuff that prevents me from creating, which is
Yeah.
that like I do my best work when I don't have to worry about configuring any of the platforms or this or that or, you know, arranging. Like I like to talk to people, and you like to
Yeah.
create stuff, and if I have to manage green screens and cameras and microphones, Twitch has seen what happens.
Yeah, like when if someone told me, "All right, Andy, you're going to be working on this show, blah blah blah, for the next 2 months. It's 14 hours a day.
Yep.
You just got to show
Yep.
up. I'm there every day."
Yeah, so I think let me come back to kind of what I'm not honestly, Andy, I'm not sure how to help you because I think that I mean I do have some ideas. So let me put forth a couple of things and then you let me know if this kind of resonates with you or doesn't resonate with you. We can try to talk further. But I
Okay.
don't think that you have some kind of psychological thing that's holding you back, basically.
Mhm.
Right? So I've been sniffing around for something like that. A lot of times the people that I can help are people who have psychological blocks that get in the way of like them doing things. It doesn't sound like you really do. The only
Mm.
thing that like I said, and it doesn't sound like this is the issue, is that I wonder if getting success when you did, if that sort of created in that sense of potential, creates for you a fear that you're not going to live up to your potential, and that fear prevents you from putting your best foot forward. But that doesn't sound like it resonates with you, right? Like you don't think that that's really an issue.
Fear. I think maybe partially fear of not living up to my potential. Uh, Definitely resonates a little bit. I feel like,
Definitely
uh,
resonates a little bit.
yeah, like All right. Well, I'm just saying, like, I don't wake up being like, man, fuck, I can't.
Yeah,
I'm not living up to my potential, man. What the fuck, man?
I'm with you.
Like, but
It's there. It's just not
but it's
owning you
there
all the
though.
time.
Exactly, it's
Sure.
there.
Okay.
It's kind of like when I'm like I when I'm kind of like, man,
Okay.
kick my
So
ass and
so
do something good.
let me tell. Okay. So can I talk for a little bit?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So I want people to kind of understand this, that generally speaking, when we think about barriers in life, I think the barriers start with the grossest. And I don't mean gross like disgusting. I mean gross is the opposite of subtle. And the better you get at things, the more subtle your barriers become. So if we think about, someone like a biological barrier is very gross in terms of it is very tangible and noticeable. So if I'm trying to get out of bed and I don't have legs, that is a very apparent, and that's maybe a better word for gross, is apparent. That's an apparent problem. Like if I'm trying to get out of bed and I lack legs, that problem is very apparent and has a very apparent sort of solution, right? I need to get legs, or maybe I need a prosthetic or a wheelchair or something like that.
I know a leg guy, by the way, if you
Awesome.
need me. I got you.
So that's kind of problem number one, is sort of like the biological or physical. Then as we kind of go further, as you settle your biological needs or physical problems, then we enter the realm of psychological problems. So psychological problems are these pent up emotions, or some scars, or little traumas, or these emotional weights that sit on our mind and prevent us from moving forward. And as we talk to you, it sounds like that's there, but it's not that significant. For most of the people that I talk to on stream, that's really where the money is. Some people that I talk to on stream, the psychological stuff actually becomes sort of irrelevant because their physical situation or their circumstance is so bad that growing as a human being doesn't fucking matter if you're, broke and don't have food and have no place to live. It's kind of like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, but psychology is ultimately less important than basic survival and biology. Mm-hmm. And then once you get the psychology stuff sort of taken care of, and what I hear from you is that's definitely a thing a little bit, then your way forward is actually spirituality. Mm-hmm. So I want you to think about this for a second. Do you know anything about Buddha?
Not that much. I mean, I do a little light research. But...
Sure. Do you know what he was in life? What his job was?
No, what was his job?
So he was a prince. So Buddha woke up one day and he was respected and he was powerful and he was loved and he was wealthy. And so he woke up one day sort of, Andy, kind of in a similar situation to you. It's not that he lacked confidence. And he wasn't unhappy. He had good days and he had bad days. He had stuff that pissed him off and he had stuff that didn't piss him off.
Well, I had a show called The Fat Prince, so that makes sense.
Great. And so Buddha woke up one day and he's sort of like I want you to think about this. If you miss something in life, you think that thing will make you happy. Right? So you have some amount of success, and I think this is the lesson that you've learned that a lot of people don't learn, is that people who are trying to make it think that making it is going to make them happy. But what we hear from you is that, sure, making it is nice, but what actually makes you happy is doing the work itself and creating something. And even if no one sees the film, you're still actually kind of happy and content with that, which the guy who's trying to make it just doesn't understand. You can explain that to him and he's just not going to get it. He's like, dude, that's crazy. I'm never going to be content until I make it. Yeah. And then people sort of end up where you are, and this is where Buddha ended up, which is that he had made it, right? He was wealthy, he was powerful, he was respected, he was loved. He walked down the street and people would approach him and be like, hey, can you take a look at my script? I have this great idea for a sketch comedy thing. And that's what Buddha was doing.
Can you sign my papyrus? No, sorry.
Yeah, exactly. Can you sign my papyrus? Right? Can I have a dirt drawing of me and you? Can we get a dirt drawing selfie? And
can you tattoo my tits? Oh wait, that's too soon.
Yeah, absolutely, right? And then Buddha woke up and he was unsatisfied. And then he's kind of screwed. Yeah. Right? Because there's nothing to move towards. There's nowhere to go from there. And so this is when he sort of realized, he's like, oh, I'm actually kind of fucked, because if I kind of have everything and everyone around me says that, like, to be happy, you have to have stuff, and I have stuff, then what do I do? And so I think that's kind of where you are. And so I think your way forward is through spirituality. And what I mean by that, and in your case, there's a particular flavor of spirituality. And what I'd like to talk to you about for a few minutes is manifestation. So in this world, we have intentions and we have energy, but oftentimes we're not able to manifest, right? So like, you want to write this thing for Netflix, but you lack the energy to write this thing for Netflix. And there are other times where you wake up and you want to do something, but you're not quite sure like what to do. So you have the energy, and you kind of mentioned that you attempted to like get on the YouTube bandwagon when like Paul Logan or Logan Paul or Joe Rogan or whoever those people are. Right? So like, you have the energy and you tried to create something and it kind of fell flat. And so the question is like, why do things fall flat when you do them? Or why is it that when you want to do something, because like when you want to do something, it's not going to fall flat. Like, you have this creative drive, but you're not able to capitalize it. And other times you're able to capitalize on something, but the creative drive is not there, so it falls flat. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
And so some people may think, oh, like the YouTube thing didn't work out because sometimes things don't work out. That is a stupid mentality to me. I think that as a scientist, if something doesn't work out, you should be able to investigate why things didn't work out. And the one thing that I would caution you to accept is that sometimes things in Hollywood don't work out, and disappointment is a part of the equation.
Most times.
And I would encourage you to step away from that. Because it's not just that randomly things become disappointed. You didn't just randomly fail at YouTube. Like, there is a reason why, and this is where you're entitled to disagree with this, and I think this kind of thinking doesn't work for 99% of people. But I want you to start thinking about your successes and failures as attributable to you. And that you have a hand in that, right? Like, the product that you put out on YouTube, the kind of acting that you do is in some degree, like, dependent on you. You have agency in that. And you can't control what execs think. I'm not talking about that.
I agree with you for pretty much any creative project except YouTube. YouTube's algorithm and the type of stuff that gets popular and the fan base and how it gets eyes, I don't attribute to myself. But
Fine.
other thing,
I mean,
besides YouTube, I agree with.
Obviously, I think that, you can't control execs, you can't control YouTube's algorithm. Like, in a sense, like, what I'm saying is completely wrong. What I want you to think about, though, is like this idea of manifestation. So you have this idea in your head of something that you want to see in the world. That is manifestation. And according to yogis from ancient India, in order to manifest, you need a union of two things. You need a union of intention and a union of energy. You need to combine intention with energy. And when I listen to you, it sounds like when things don't go well, you are lacking one of those two things. So like, when you think about creating something for Netflix, you have this idea of what you want to create, but the energy isn't behind it. And sometimes when the energy is behind something, you still are not able to manifest, and that may be because of a YouTube algorithm, fine. But that there's like you can have energy without direction, and then like you're not able to create.
Do you think the past failures and the past effort I put into stuff where, and there's a lot of them, and I know it's a normal thing, but do you think those past failures just, once you like, it's like when you're the first time you're motivated to climb that mountain, you feels good, feels strong, then you fail, and then you try a second time, and then you try a third time, and a fourth time. By the fifth time, like, it's not the same as the first time. You're not kind of like, yeah, let's get up this bitch.
Yes,
I'm going to get there. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Which is why what I'm telling you, Andy, I haven't used the word motivation.
Yeah.
In my first part of the solution, I'm not talking about motivation, because you're spot on. Because the human brain is going to learn, if I walk out to my balcony and I drop an egg off the balcony and it crashes to the ground and breaks, and then I do that 5 more times, my brain is going to start to expect that if I drop an egg, it's going to break.
Yeah.
Is you pull yourself up by your bootstraps, dig deep and find your motivation and give it your best, and those execs say no thank you after a 3-day pilot, the second time you get on that rodeo, like you go to that rodeo and you get that bull, and then like you learn that lesson again and you learn that lesson again and you learn that lesson again, you think you lack motivation. You don't lack motivation. Your problem is that you're smart. Your problem is that you have made observations in the real world, and those observations have taught you that disappointment is a probability, and as long as you're talking to suits, they're not going to get behind your ideas.
Yeah. I even had a pilot, and fucking Jimmy Kimmel signed on as a producer. He's the guy who discovered me, by the way, but Jimmy Kimmel signed on as a producer. We got him. He's a busy guy. We got him to be in a sketch to pitch it. Even that, they're like, nah. And I'm just like, when you see like shit that just seems so ripe and so perfect, and it's just like, nah.
Yeah, so
Kind of like,
so that is going to absolutely kill your motivation, which is why I think
yeah.
your way forward is to abandon motivation entirely.
Okay.
Your way forward is to recognize that motivation is not something that you can create. Like, you can get inspired. Mm-hmm. That sounds like motivation, but that's why I'm using the words intention, energy, and manifestation.
Mm-hmm.
So once you have an intention, I think you should, and this is going to sound so simple, but like, yeah, let me just say this, and then you let me know if this makes any sense, or it's simple, or it has no value to you. I don't want you to think about motivation. I want you to think about your intention. What is it that you want to create, and how do you put energy behind it? Mm-hmm. And if you can align those two things, I think it will become manifest. Motivation is not an issue here. Disappointment is not an issue here. Execs are not an issue here. YouTube is not an issue here. It is about clarifying in your mind what is it that I want to create, and then aligning your energy to create that thing. Because every time a hurdle arises and you don't have a green screen and you don't have a this and you don't have a that, that is going to impact your motivation if you're playing the game of motivation. Because you have this idea in your head, and then like it doesn't sort of turn out in that way, and then like since it's not turning out, since you have this idea that is actually like a fantasy, and since the fantasy is not playing out the way, oh, this shit is hard, I need a green screen, this camera's not working, this is not working, it impedes your motivation. Mm-hmm. And instead what I want you to have is, don't look at the end and what you want to create. Sit where you are and look in the direction that you want to go, and pack energy into that forward process.
Sounds a lot like motivation, though. That's the only problem.
It does sound a lot like motivation, right? So I think, so let me put it to you this way. Sometimes you get motivated to create something that you envision in the end, right? And if you're motivated to create this thing in the end, what happens with setbacks? What does that do to your motivation?
It diminishes it.
Absolutely. So what I'm talking, so there's a difference between looking at the top of the mountain and starting to climb and things getting in the way, and being where you are and focusing on taking the next step.
Yeah, I feel like I could do that with stuff that I do on my own that doesn't rely on anyone else but me. I feel like that advice is actually good advice for stuff that only involves me, which is fine because I could create a lot of shit on my own. But when it comes to involving other people, then there's other variables that I feel like are out of the picture.
Yes, and that is exactly your problem, is because you use a different strategy when other people are involved that prevents you from doing your best work. Right? That's exactly the problem, is that when it's on your own, you can actually put forth your perfect creative energy. And when other people get involved, something in your mind changes that prevents you from doing solo work. So what I want you to do is don't stop doing solo work. I want you to do solo work in spite of people.
Yeah, I mean, I get that, and I feel like solo work is is definitely more of my ticket because I don't need to rely on other people.
Why didn't you write the thing for Netflix?
Probably because of thinking about my probabilities and thinking about how many times I went into a meeting and it just led to nothing. And then your manager hooks you up with
So
general meetings, which is just
in
like
that equation, there's Andy plus Netflix equals manifestation,
nothing.
right?
Okay.
But that's exactly my point, is that what you should have done is say, fuck all that. I'm going to just make this thing. And if Netflix wants to get on board, they can get on board. If I have to sit in meetings, I have to sit in meetings. But I'm not going to, you're factoring Netflix into the equation, which kills your productivity. So what you need to do is factor them out of the equation and be idiotic. Be perfectly idiotic.
I'm good at being an idiot.
Absolutely. And just create whatever weird shit is in your head and don't worry about the rest of them. Factor them out of the equation. And then show up and just pitch whatever crazy, stupid thing you want. And then they're like, okay, we want to come back. And then you recognize these are just the idiots. And you're going to do your thing. You're not going to try to cater to them. You're just going to do your thing and let them be stupid. And you're not going to start playing a multiplayer game. You need to treat them like NPCs instead of party members.
Yeah.
Because your problem is that when you play a single player game, you do a fantastic job. When you play a multiplayer game, you stop producing.
Yeah. It's funny because the very biggest and first thing that I did was single player, my own idiocy, my own fucking idiotic, weird rants and sketches and songs. And it was so cringy, basic cable, weird, and that's what MTV wanted. But nowadays in 2020, that level of energy that I put out, you know, do they want that? You know what I mean? I don't know if they want that. If I go get like say I go get an independent budget of 50,000 and I go create something that looks like something in their wheelhouse and I put my energy into that, which that's realistic too, then maybe they'd want it, but I have to be realistic into thinking what they're actually going to get. If I'm just like 100% me, fuck everybody. This is like this own weird ball of crazy. Netflix, just because it has raw energy, is not going to be like, yeah, let's air this. Let's give this guy.
I'm with you 100%.
I mean,
right? I'm with you 100%. And I think it is actually irrelevant to what I'm saying. Right?
Okay.
So I want you to think about this for a second. When you're playing a game, whether you have party members or NPCs, you have to account for them.
Mm-hmm.
Right? But those are fundamentally different things.
Okay.
Like, you have to account for them, but what I'm saying is that, like, you should create. So you do your best work, I think, when you're solo playing. And you are telling me that the more that you account for them, what does it do to your productivity?
Well, a lot of times it stops it because I have to, like, cater to them and appeal to them if I want it to be something bigger.
Right. And so, like, what's your problem? Right? Your problem is that you're not able to produce.
Yeah.
And the more that you cater for them, what happens to your productivity?
It goes down.
Absolutely. And so you're saying, but if I just am an unfettered ball of absolute crazy, they're going to be like, that's not for us. Although, if we really listen to what you said a few minutes ago, that seems to be the thing that actually got you successful in the first place.
It was a different time then. I mean,
Fine.
there was no.
So I would not worry about. I would try to shift away from them. So even if we don't want to go 100% ball of crazy, I think you've got to re-evoke that ball of crazy and then learn. Like, don't try to give them what they want. Dress up what you want to give them. And I think that's the big difference. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
That's like the difference between an NPC and a party member.
And also, I've been thinking about this a lot. If I put in 100% energy to my next crazy thing, it doesn't matter if they want it ultimately. If someone wants it, that's cool. If no one wants it, as long as I'm creating dope stuff that's new and original, that feels good, then, then I'm chilling.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Right? So, like, now we're both saying the same thing.
And I've been gearing up for that. I mean, I literally am an Airbnb. I bought gaming chairs, I bought desks, I bought a new microphone, I bought new headphones, like just so I could create shit while I'm here.
Good.
Like, cause
So the
you know,
last thing, a little bit of a concrete tip that is going to satisfy the part of you that wants to be successful. Okay. Mm-hmm. So you're kind of saying like, I can't just be an unfettered ball of crazy. So be it. You can't be an unfettered ball of crazy. Fine. You have to consider what the Netflix execs want. Fine. So this is where I want to talk to you about triage. Do you know what triage means?
is that like a threesome?
No.
Just kidding.
So like, so in medicine, sorry, it was, so in medicine, we do this thing where we triage, right? So we take like 5 people and we try to figure out who's the sickest, who's the sickest,
Yeah.
and what kind of resources do they need, and like who's the second sickest and who's the third sickest, who's the fourth sickest. So here's the thing, Andy, you're a creative guy, so you're going to have a bunch of ideas, right? How do you decide which idea to pursue?
Something that feels polarizing to me.
Okay, so I want you to take like 5 of your polarizing ideas and then try to figure out which one feels true to me, which one is actually a solo player game, but also out of these 5 things, which one do I think I could sell the best to Netflix?
Yeah. That's easy for me to do because I take the insanity first and then I chisel away
Beautiful.
some of it and then I basically what it needs is here's the crazy, here's the raw, and then it needs a skeleton. And
Absolutely.
when you have a skeleton and a through line, you could throw that crazy on and then you
Absolutely.
could have a show out of it.
Absolutely. So, Andy, I think this is what you've got to do, man. And I think, I mean, to me, it sounds weird that you're not already doing this, but somewhere in the way, I think you got mixed up with worrying about productivity and giving them what they want, and that killed your inspiration, it killed your creativity, and you weren't able to manifest. And I think all it is, it's not about really changing anything, it's just about changing the way you look at things. And I think it's like really tap into that crazy, but understand that in your head, no matter how, even if you try to give Netflix 100% unfettered crazy, understand that the safeguards on that crazy are going to be the business sense that you have to have in order to be as successful as you are.
Yeah.
And you'll tweak things and tune things, but don't try to give them what they want. Try to give them what you want.
Yeah.
And then you'll figure out how to put the skeleton on there. Like, that's beautiful, right? Like, you know how to do that. You don't need to worry about them rejecting your absolute crazy because you're never going to give them absolute crazy. But don't lose sight of that. Put the skeleton on it, and then go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, like, I see how safe certain content could be, where it just all kind of seems the same, and I want to shake that up. I feel like a lot of shows are colored by number, and they're kind of like that goes there, that goes there, that goes there. I want the craziness because the craziness is me trying to make something original and different because there's value in that. There's not always value. The value is not always seen by executives, but I think the value is there and it's strong because it's different from what other people do.
So this is a beautiful way to reframe, right? So the question isn't about giving them what they want. It's about finding people, those rare souls who will see the value. Like, I have to think, so have you seen Tiger King?
Yes.
So Tiger King is a beautiful example of everything that you're talking about.
Yeah. It's
right?
like,
so if I go ahead.
No, I was going to say it's like Gummo-esque.
What is that?
It's a Harmony Korine film.
Oh, okay. I don't know. But
He basically had like he basically took people off like some Jerry Springer show that were addicted to huffing, and they're like, you're the actors of this movie now. Go drown some cats and go sell the cats to a Chinese restaurant.
Right. So like, yeah, it's crazy, man. So I think you got to tap into that crazy, because I think that like if you really look at the things that move forward the entertainment industry, they're not the safe bet. They're not the things that the execs want.
It's the polarizing shit.
Absolutely.
And a lot of people are like, what kind of stuff do you want to do? And even early on, even though I was doing shit that sometimes would make people laugh, to me, the bigger pop was people saying, what the fuck did I just watch? To me, that's more valuable than saying like,
that
oh, that
is
was
what
kinda
I
funny.
say to myself 5 times per episode of Tiger King.
Exactly.
Right? So like I cannot, like, what I love about the show is that it has created thoughts in my head that I have never had before.
Do
And
you want to sleep with Carol Baskin? That's the real question I have for you.
I do not. You should ask me if
Just
I want to
kidding.
sleep with Joe Exotic, though. That's the bigger question, right?
I mean, that I already knew the answer to.
That
That's a
was
big
obvious.
yes.
Yeah.
That's why I asked you,
Yeah.
Carol.
But I think exactly, right? So I think, Andy, here's the thing. So the last thing, kind of a little spiritual nugget that I'll leave you with, is understand that. So I'm going to try to recap. So I think your problem, for lack of a better word, is that you want to create something substantive, and you recognize that you have to get big people behind you and you need production value. So be it. It's not egotistical. We sort of sorted through that. It's because you are an artist and you want to create. Like, you want to create a Sistine Chapel, and that's not like a 5x5 canvas, right? Like, you
No.
want to paint something that is
I want
huge.
something like this on the wall.
Absolutely. That's what you want. So be it. It's not egotistical. It's your calling. It is your dharma. It is your duty. It is what you need to do. It is what you were put on this earth to do. You were put on this earth to offer polarizing things that wake people up in a world of mass market, algorithmic bullshit that is dopaminergic and soulless. You
Yeah.
are our Messiah. You have to understand that deep within you, Andy. That this polarizing thing is what we need, and we see evidence of that. It's how you got your success. It's why Tiger King is successful, right?
Yeah.
What execs want is they want adaptations of existing formulas that work. They don't want, if someone walks in and says, I have a show for you that's about a homosexual zoo owner who is engaged in a polygamous relationship with 2 straight men.
Are you talking about me or Tiger King?
I'm talking about you.
Okay.
Andy Milonakis, The Life Story. Right?
Hey.
Right?
Dab on the haters.
So, like, the execs are going to be like, you're crazy, man. And then one
Yeah.
person is going to say, like, what they're going to say is, like, we want version 2.0 of Homeland. We want the next Homeland. That's what they're going to say. But then, like, some of them, and I love this. Because there are execs out there who are, like, not like this, and I love them. Because some of them are like, yeah, let's make something absolutely crazy. Let's do it.
Yeah.
Right? You have people
And
who...
it's not that hard for them to do that, because if you look in history and you see a lot of crazy, shocking, big things, like, yeah, there's the safe play, which is like the dating reality shows that you've seen a million times. And then there's the one-offs that are like, boom, that are defining moments in like TV or
Absolutely.
movies.
But if you think about it from the perspective of an executive, the probability of success from a safe show is way higher than like the probability of success from a polarizing.
Big risk, big reward.
Absolutely, right? And that's not how execs get their job. They get their job by reliable results.
Yeah.
And
100%.
but just going back to you, so I think you've got to be that polarizing influence, and then you've got to understand that, like, when you, like, don't let that stop you from going into Netflix. Understand that, like, you need to be the Messiah for Netflix. Like, that's what you've got to be. And you got to go there, and when you present your idea, if they toss it out the window, so be it. That was, and this is the spiritual nugget, that was not your Sistine Chapel.
Yeah.
That was you leveling up to make the next Sistine Chapel. And that there are circumstances, there is karma, and karma will decide whether that beautiful work that you create becomes famous and is shown on 200 screens or never gets shown at all. But your job is to create. It's not to make things successful.
Yeah. True.
And as long as you orient towards that, I think you will continue creating, and I think you're going to be successful. Because I've tried to help people do this, and I've seen this reliably time and time and time again. When successful people start to play it safe and they stop listening to their calling, when they start focusing on their career and stop focusing, when they focus on their career and ignore their calling, they end up not only failing, but they feel empty.
Yeah.
And
that's what I feel about Twitch too. Twitch is kind of me playing it safe a little bit.
Yeah. So which doesn't mean you have to quit. It just means that you shouldn't start listening to your calling again and don't worry about your career.
Yeah.
Thoughts, questions?
No, it makes a lot of sense. Honestly, I like the one thing that's holding me back with Twitch is how much time you have to stream for.